And so the phytogenics now have a lot more science behind them. I used to consider many of them foo-foo dust or pizza toppings. They didn't have a whole lot of science behind them. You sometimes put them in just because you didn't have any other options. And I think now through our research farm, we do a lot more trials and be able to understand how they work.
Welcome to Future Feed Talks. In this episode, we dive into practical strategies for managing gut health without antibiotics, the role of data-driven planning, and what the future holds for broiler health programs. Today I'm joined by Dr. Sara Throne, Senior Director of Veterinary Services at Simmons Foods, with decades of global experience in broiler health and a deep focus on intestinal health and performance. She leads critical work across veterinary services, quality assurance, and research. This series is in cooperation with DSM Firmenich and Miset International. My name is Iris Hoffman, I'm a video editor, and I will be conducting this interview. Hi Sara, it's a pleasure to do this interview with you.
Nice to be here.
To dive right in, how important is intestinal health in terms of birds' performance, and what are the main threats?
So I am a firm believer that intestinal health and intestinal integrity is the driver for bird performance. If we don't have an intestinal tract that's functioning optimally to be able to absorb nutrients in a timely manner, we will not see that performance from a growth standpoint, from a yield standpoint, and it really truly affects all the systems of that bird.
I see. And what would you say are the biggest challenges when it comes to managing coccidiosis and necrotic enteritis without antibiotics?
Oh, that's a loaded question. So I think some of the biggest things are you've got to really manage the basics. What I talk to my service techs and our team about a lot are feed, water, lights, temperature, air, and litter. So those are the big things that you've got to get right. And as you go to start your programs, I think you really have to think about all 6 things and what can you do to optimize those. And then you've got to factor in downtime. Downtime is really critical. Dilution is the solution to pollution. So if we can have adequate downtime where we can dry out those houses, then that's going to lessen the chance of bacteria and viruses, coccidiosis, all of those challenges coming in and impacting your birds.
Exactly. And can you walk us through your approach to balancing performance with the restrictions of, for instance, No Antibiotics Ever and No Antibiotics Important to human medicine programs?
Yeah, so what we start with is really understanding what products are available to us for each of those different PVP production schemes. We start off by understanding what we've used in the past and then really charting what products are available and then looking at our production cycles. So I consider a cycle the amount of time it takes you to grow the bird plus your downtime. And so we outline how many cycles we're going to have throughout the course of that year. And then we look at what products we've got available based on our PVP. Is there certain times of the year where those work better than other times? We start labeling those and kind of putting those throughout the year. And then we look at our research data and determine what products may work better with a vaccine. We know that that in an NAE situation is going to be part of our program. And so what things have we learned from our research that we can utilize within those programs?
And what is the role of your customers in the food sector in implementing certain programs?
So obviously our job as an integrated poultry company is to serve our customers who in turn serve their consumers. So our customers really come to us and have that conversation with what they feel is important to their consumers. And then we help them identify if there's a certain or particular PVP that matches their consumer needs, and then let them know how that matches along with our production. And so we talk about what are the pros and the cons of each of those different production mechanisms, what can be allowed, what can't be allowed. And then I think the other part is really important is to talk about how they can talk about how animals are raised then to the consumer. So consumers don't always want to know exactly all about how they're raised, but they want to know that animals are taken care of, that they've got veterinary oversight, that they're raised by farmers that care. And so part of my role is to also have that conversation with our customers so that they know how to communicate that better with their consumers.
Exactly. So let's have a look at your strategy. It emphasizes long-term planning and disciplined execution. How does this make the plan, work the plan approach, improve outcomes on the ground?
So I think you have to be disciplined. I think you have to go in with a plan. So we sit together as a team and make that plan. We look out 12 to 24 months of what products we are going to have available, what challenges that we believe are coming in the future, what performance we had in the past that's going to help dictate those things. And so we're all aware of what the plan is, down to the dates of when we're going to make those changes. So that helps us manage inventories. It helps us manage things at the feed mills, at the hatchery. It also helps us determine what we need to do from a litter, things like that in the actual barns prior to going into certain different programs. And then we have to go in and really have excellent execution. And we have to have that execution at the feed mill, at the hatchery, and at the grow out. So everybody needs to be aware of what that program is. Everybody needs to have the same North Star of where they're working towards. And then we have to monitor it. So we have to make sure that the program is working how we think it should work. And we do that through posting sessions. We do that through time in the field. We do that through observations that our service techs do. And then ultimately, we look at our performance in our key production indicators. So average daily gain, feed conversion, and then one of the other critical components is plant yields. Because we know if we have good intestinal health, those birds are able to use those nutrients from growth rather than maintenance. And in broilers, that manifests itself in yield.
Interesting. And how effective are non-antibiotic alternatives and how do you evaluate them for inclusion?
Actually, I think over the last decade, as we've had new PVPs come in, we've finally gotten a lot of research behind some of our non-antibiotic therapies. And so the phytogenics now have a lot more science behind them. I used to consider many of them foo-foo dust or pizza toppings. They didn't have a whole lot of science behind them. You sometimes put them in just because you didn't have any other options. And I think now through our research farm, we do a lot more trials and be able to understand how they work. We've got now a decade of the companies bringing those products to market that they've been able to do research and utilize them both in a research setting as well as a field setting. And so I think having that science come in is really critical. And so we utilize those products through our research farm, things that would go in the feed. So we know what we think works best and what works in combination. And then we'll do small scale trials out in the field, particularly with water soluble. We've got our cocktail that we really like to treat initially with necrotic enteritis, but we always want to make sure we've got other alternatives that we can turn to.
I see. So what metrics do you track most closely when monitoring intestinal health? And how do these link to processing plant performance?
So average daily gain, feed conversion, those are probably the two biggest metrics on the settlement sheet that I track. But in addition to that, our service techs in their weekly meeting report any non-antibiotic therapies that we've used. So I obviously track antibiotic usage, and I'm proud to say our team, we've not had to use antibiotics to treat necrotic enteritis in over 4 years. So we do utilize non-antibiotic therapy. So on a weekly number, on a weekly basis, we track that number. And so I've got kind of what our normal should be. And if we start to see that number come up or down, then we start evaluating our program and seeing if we need to have any other changes. And then from a plant processing standpoint, I make sure that I'm in good communication to our processing plants because they're watching yields on a daily and a weekly basis. And if they see any dramatic changes, then we come back and look at our intestinal health program to see if we've had any major changes.
So to wrap up, what do you think the future holds for broiler health programs? Are there any tools or approaches you're particularly excited about?
I think there's some new technology coming from vaccines that I'm excited to see. You know, the nice thing about COVID is it did bring a lot of vaccine technology and vaccine research, and I'm anxious to see how maybe we can apply some of those things within our broiler production and just some of the key learnings that have come from some of that. I do think we'll continue to have more science around the non-antibiotic therapies. I think we're learning more about those phytogenics and how to use them. I would love to have a better way to measure effectiveness of prebiotics, postbiotics. Those are always very tricky for me, so I'm always looking for better ways to try to evaluate if they're working. And then the other thing is around food safety. So there's obviously been a huge push over the last decade or 2 decades as we continue to have a really extremely safe food supply in the US and around the globe. But I do think there's opportunities for us to continue to grow in that area.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time. And it was a pleasure doing this interview with you.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.